Have you ever heard this at the start of a song before?
It might seem crazy.
Chances are, that means Pharrell was behind the production. Pharrell has an incredibly diverse style that have ranged over countless platinum tracks. And I'm going to show you lots of production tricks and strategies that Pharrell uses when producing his multi-platinum beats. For this first track, I'm going to go for a similar style for Hit Different. It has such an awesome smooth vibe.
It's different. It's different.
There are some amazing live vocals in the background. I cannot sing at all, but I do have the Emotional Essence library, which is a royalty-free sample library. I'm going to open up the Energetic Bouncy section, and I grabbed this vocal here. It's from this full melody, but I'm just going to grab the vocal bed. And I added this gross beat preset over the top, which chops it up slightly. I'm also going to add a little bit of chorus to it. It'll help it blend in nicely into the background. I just opened up a blank sampler. I'm going to drag the MIDI that comes from this melody. And what this means is, if I click Alt-V, we have the ghost notes in the background. So it's really easy to create a melody that fits with this vocal perfectly. So I created these chords here, which just followed along for the scale in the background. To add to the depth of this melody, I'm going to click Alt-S, which is a strum. I'm going to decrease the time a bit. And it just adds so much to the depth of the melody. And something else as well, I'm going to click on the tool here. I'm going to click Randomize, or you can do Alt-R. And what that's going to do is, we can change around the pan down the bottom. We can also change around the velocity. And it's going to add so much depth to this melody. I grabbed this arpeggio here, and I went and copied the melody on the top. And it can be cool for a bit of a bridge, a hook, or any part of the track where I want to add a little bit of depth and rhythm to it. I also grabbed these keys here and just copied the melody over the top. Sometimes the pad is going to be too much and it's going to be too wide, and that's where we can swap this piano in. Since these three melodies I made are all basically hitting on the exact same notes, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing this and playing all of them at the same time, because they're all going to be hitting in the exact same EQ ranges and they're going to clash with each other. I have this counter melody and I love the mysterious kind of sad vibe. One thing I did is you'll notice most of these notes aren't hitting at the very start of a bar. So we have the main chords come in and then we have this counter melody come in slightly after, and it has a really cool kind of delayed vibe. I have this other cool counter melody here. I'm not going to play all these together, but just to give you an example, this is what the melodies and the live vocals sound like so far. It's going to sound awesome adding a beat on top of this. I want to go and jump in and start another track and show you a different one of Pharrell's styles. Then I'm going to come back and finish this beat later in the video. I'm going to open up the Producer Sound Capsule, which is a royalty-free sample library. It has melodies and samples split up based on decades. I want to go into the 2020s folder, and there's so many amazing melodies in here. Which had a really cool kind of old school style. I want to go and grab this one called Back to Life. And one thing I did was just crop the very end of this guitar. So if you have a listen to it, it cuts out partway through. And we have the second guitar here filling in the gaps. So if we wanted to have a cool kind of verse, which sounded a bit raw and didn't have layers coming in all the time, I'd go and remove this guitar. I make so many beats from scratch, but it's such an absolute cheat code having live vocals like this, because I think it's almost impossible to get the same kind of vibe and feeling without using live vocals. So I have this synth here, and I went and created a melody basically following the scale and the MIDI of these vocals. And for this track, I'm going for a similar kind of style of this Uzi song here. It has a very spacey, energetic vibe, and it's perfect for something like Uzi or Playboi Carti, for example. If I copy that same melody on top of this arpeggio, and add so much energy to the melody. I also copied it onto this pluck. I have this kind of effect in the background. And I also added this texture. It'll blend into the background, but it can add so much rhythm to it. And it's perfect for if you want to take the drums out, but you want to keep the rhythm in the track. I also went and grabbed the chords, clicked Shift D, which shortens them down like this, and created this pluck here. And one thing that really annoys me inside FL Studio is unless you're using a stock FL Studio plugin, you can't add slide notes. So here, for example, the slide note does absolutely nothing. So what I did is, I went to a new pattern, I went and added in a note like this, for example. I went into the master, I opened up Edison, I went and clicked record and then play. I want to drag this sample into the playlist. You go and increase the sample start offset, which trims out the start. I went and lowered the volume a little bit and then clicked normalize. And I also increased the out, which makes it a shorter sample. And you have your own Rhodes sample like that. And what's perfect about this is you can go and add a slide to this. So I just added this at the end here. And it adds so much energy as it really slides and builds up into the chord. I also added this guitar here. And again, we're not going to play all these melody notes together at the same time, but this is what it sounds like. Leave this beat just for a second, and I'm going to go and add the drums to the first melody that we created. I want to have a really bouncy kind of kick, and one way to do that is having these kicks right before the next beat. You'll hear how bouncy this sounds. I'm going to copy the kick sequence onto this 808, and all I did was add these extra notes here. Got a really basic clap coming in here. Same thing for this snare. I added this really simple hi-hat sequence, and all I did was go and change the pitch of some of the notes slightly to follow the melody. It's completely unnecessary, but I think it sounds really cool and it blends in slightly nicer. I'm also going to change the panning around slightly. Open hi-hat. This percussion here. This crash here. I'm going to go into the mixer track. I'm going to deselect the vocals because they're already in the insert 1 when I added the gross beat. I'm going to do Control-Shift-L on insert 2, and I'm going to go through and mix these one by one. I'm going to move this to 100% merged, which means this track is in mono. Just starting with these vocals. They sound really good. I'm not going to cut anything out. This arpeggio sounds awesome. It's so spacey. I'm going to grab the EQ. Just cut out some of the low ends. Same for this pad here. I'm going to grab just 2 of those layers and then go and mix the drums with those layers as kind of like a reference track. The bass sounds really good and wide. I'm actually going to go and add a teeny bit of distortion to it. Just make it sound a bit rougher. I'm going to add some reverb to this clap or snare here. Obviously going to add some reverb to this hi-hat. And now if we have a look here, this track is hitting at -6 decibels, which is perfect for you to go and add a soft clipper or a maximizer. If you want to do something simple with stock plugins, you can go and add Fruity Soft Clipper and just go and increase the post. Have a look at that there. You want it to be at around -2 decibels. You'll hear how amazing this sounds when we get all those kind of panning back in this track. I'm going to change the character down to slow. I'm going to click on this pattern, right click and click S, which is split by channel. I'm going to grab all of these here. I'm going to drag it in. And just like that, we have all this beat spaced out here. I want to go and drag this onto the second bar. I want to go and grab this section here. Just crop it so we grab the very start. Move it back here. To make things sound a bit more interesting, I've gone and brought a couple of the layers in for the second 8 bars of the verse. We have this open hi-hat here. I want to grab this perk here, but just to make the drop in the hook even more special, I've taken them out so they're not hitting the whole time, so it still sounds really fresh when they come in for the drop. I want to go into the Emotional Essence library and just go into the transition section. I want to turn the volume down and have it come in around here. I'm going to go and duplicate this 3 times. And as you can see here, the finished track is around 3 minutes and 30 seconds long, which I think is perfect. Let me go and jump into the second one and add the drums. So you have this kick sequence here. I'm going to copy that on top of the 808. And we're just following the notes of the scale in the background. I went and grabbed a 2-step hi-hat sequence like this. I went and grabbed every second note just like this. I went and moved it down, and I went and pitched it down as well. I added some fill notes, and I also cut out some gaps like this here, and I was left with this hi-hat sequence. I have this open hi-hat, which is kind of like a crash as well. This snare here. Now I'm going to drag all of them into the mixer track here. I'm going to go through one by one. I always start mixing really quiet and turn the volume up on my audio interface. I want to go and add the knock clipper. Just having a look at the final volume. This is a bit more of a simplistic beat. A lot of the main focus is on the melody layers. If I go and reset the stereo separation, I think the beat sounds really good. I want to go and split this by channel. Go and grab all these. I noticed with Pharrell, a lot of the time his beat comes in almost at the start. He has that stutter at the start and then the beat comes in. He absolutely wastes no time. I want to remove so many of these layers at the start. I want this guitar to be really special when it comes in for the hook. So I'm going to chop it out at the end here. I'm going to duplicate all this. I'm going to have these 2 layers come in for the second verse, and then I'm going to duplicate this again, add a little bit of an outro here. And as you can see, this is around 3 minutes, which I think is a perfect length, and it will be slightly longer. When I go and add a bit of a stutter at the start, I'm going to trim all of this down. I'm going to move these up. And what I am going to grab is a really wide snare. You'll notice this is very similar to what happens in Hit Different, for example. I noticed Pharrell's 4-beat intro is actually a little bit slower than this, so I'm going to move this back and just half-time this. I noticed the beat intro sounds a teeny bit empty, so I'm going to add these guitar plucks here. And just like that, these beats are basically done. Pharrell has produced so many tracks, and it's really hard to nail his perfect style because he has so many different styles. But the vast majority of my subscribers and followers are looking to make hip-hop beats, trap beats, and R&B beats, so I decided to take that kind of angle with these tracks. So let me know if you think I got the style correct. If you want the samples in the Emotional Essence library, click the link in the description. It has over 10,000 royalty-free samples and MIDI for every emotion. And if you want the samples in the Producer Sound Capsule, that has over 15,000 royalty-free samples and MIDI for every emotion. The links for those will be in the description. I definitely recommend checking it out. The packs are 90% off and 95% off respectively, so it's an absolute unbelievable deal that isn't going to be up for long. If you want to learn how other producers create their signature sound, click one of the recommended videos, and I hope to see you there.